You know, I put this in a campground for about 3 months one time. It was $850 a month in a campground to put this tiny home. So there's just no place to put these tiny homes. You know, that's affordable. $850. It might be a little bit less than rent, but than the average rent in the area. But still, you know, the tiny home doesn't have too much space either.
Right.
So, you know, an apartment for a little bit more money, you could get an apartment with a lot more room. But, you know, if we could put this somewhere, you know, for and charge somebody, you know, a couple $100, $200, $300 a month, that's something they could afford. Working at, you know, a low-wage job, McDonald's, Walmart, gas station.
Right.
Yeah.
Sort of like the way that the Section 8 vouchers work, right? They cover, to a degree anyway, they're supposed to.
Well, this is something, you know, they could carry their own weight. They wouldn't have to be subsidized. They could, you know, work at a little job somewhere and make that $300.
So we have this, you know, they moved, many of them moved into apartments. Apartments go away. How many do you think out of that remained in their housing for any length of time?
It was only 5 people. 5 people out of the 60 were able to remain in their housing. I think right now there's probably only about 1 after the 8 years since Tent City's closed. There's only 1 person out of the 60 that's still in their housing.
And why do you think that is? What were the causes?
Yeah, well, the cost of the apartments were, you know, there were $1,200, $1,400, $1,600 a month for these apartments, and there was no way, especially as a single individual, that they were going to afford a standard apartment in this area. The town manager of the town next to Lakewood, which is Howell, it's in another county, but it's the town just north of Lakewood. The town manager was friendly with Tent City here in Lakewood. He would bring his men down. In fact, at the time he was the captain of the Howell Police Department, which is big. You know, I never experienced a captain of a police department that was as friendly as this fellow. And so he became the town manager of Howell, and he convinced them to allow a camp to exist in Howell that was supported or at least sanctioned by the township. No township money, no government money went into this camp. It was all you know, private money, people donating, and supported the people in this camp. No government money, but it was sanctioned by the camp. By the township. The township gave its stamp of approval for this camp. And in the 3 years that we were there, no police came down to the camp. It was peaceful. You asked anybody that lived in that camp if they were happy. They would say, you know, they were happy as, you know, they could be. They had large tents. They had heaters in the wintertime. And they worked together, cleaning the camp, cooking for the camp, and so it was a very harmonious camp. And it was a perfect example of what can happen. You know, you have a nonprofit taking charge of a camp, the local government approving of it, and local charities, churches, organizations supporting it. And everybody's happy, and this was a case in point, and it showed that you know, that could happen.
How many people were in the camp?
They had a cap at 15, so it wasn't a real big camp.
Okay.
But it was majority women in that camp. Majority women, and they were older. Most of them were over 55, and yeah, it was a very nice camp.
And that was on private land or public land?
It was public land, and yeah, that was the demise of the camp. Somebody from Lakewood, a very rich person, wanted that piece of property. He was going to put a shopping mall on it, so he talked to the township, and the township sided, of course, with the money, and said that we had to go. You know, the big homeless experiment, and. Yeah, of course, no other towns on the East Coast has done that. except maybe somebody in Florida, but not out of Florida, nobody in the East Coast. So it was kind of an experiment out here. So they wanted to keep it relatively small just to see how it went, but it went perfect without a hitch. People, staying right now in the swamps between the lakes right now. There's people down by the railroad tracks right now. There's people sleeping right where I'm sitting right now. Somebody will be sleeping outside tonight in this spot. And over there under that tree, they'll be sleeping tonight. And there's people in different sets of woods. Somebody called me the other day in Bricktown looking for a place, and I haven't hooked up with him yet. But people call me, I'd say, on an average of at least twice a week looking for some help.
And they're mostly in Ocean and some in Monmouth, I guess.
Yeah, both counties. Between the two counties, there's only 3 beds for homeless women out of 2 counties with a combined population of 1.5 million people. Between the 2 counties, there's only 3 homeless beds for women between the 2 counties. There's nothing in Ocean County whatsoever. No shelter. There's a code blue in the wintertime. It comes summertime, when the temperatures are above 35 degrees, there's no shelter whatsoever in Ocean County. Right now, I know Lakewood is petitioning the county to build a shelter somewhere outside of Lakewood, so they can force the homeless out of Lakewood and put them somewhere else. But the county doesn't seem to be wanting to build another shelter anywhere else either.
So Lakewood is okay with the shelter being built if it's somewhere else.
Right, not in their backyard.
Right, so then a town like, say, Brick or Tom's River might say, well, wait a second, we don't want the shelter either, when you build it.
Exactly, that's what it is. The population not in my backyard. Everybody. So it's tough. This county is a wealthier county. It's a resort type county. A lot of people come in to rent houses down by the beach in the summertime, and they just want to keep the idea that this county has no problems. The problem was Ocean County was doing that. It was giving them a one-way ticket down to the Atlantic City Rescue Mission, and so when Jeff Wild was fighting the case here, he talked to them down in the mission, and the mission decided to sue Ocean County because they were sending people down there without without compensating the mission properly for the people they were sending down there. And so the mission sued Ocean County for $2 million. So they told the mission, if you drop the lawsuit, we'll build a shelter. And so the mission dropped the lawsuit, and they never built the shelter.
Sometimes you'll hear from towns, we don't want to clean up somebody else's mess. But what's happening here is that these are, for the most part, local people. So it's not like a national problem that's just being dumped on Lakewood. Lakewood is it's a local problem that's part of the national problem.
Right. Every society, every community is going to have a cross-section of people that are poor, or might have some, mental health issues or whatever. Every society is going to have it, wherever you go in the world. And so Ocean County's, no exception. And so you're going to have people that were born and raised here that are going to be in that situation, So, and I think the policy of the county is don't build it and they won't stay. You don't build it, you don't have resources for the homeless, they're not going to stick around. They're going to go where there's resources. At least that's what the township thinks, or the county thinks. So, but the thing is, people that grew up here, they're accustomed to this area. They know people here, they know the surroundings, they feel comfortable. And so a lot of people don't want to leave what they're comfortable with, especially when they're already stressed because they're losing, their housing.
Destiny's Bridge, I guess we've been talking about Destiny's Bridge for a while now. Where does that stand?
It was a tiny home community. It was the original vision. And again, just kind of like the camp that we had in Howell, but have it with tiny homes instead of tents. And we have a little garden, we have sustainability as much as possible. We have the residents of the community contributing to the upkeep of the community, right, and working if they can outside the community. So, yeah, again, it's just not where we really want it to be as far as our original goals and mission. But you know, we're meeting the needs of people that otherwise would be suffering more without the basic necessities of life. You know, shelter, being a tent at this point, food on a regular basis, clothing on a regular basis, you know, and those type of things. I have another trailer that I tow behind the truck, and I bring it out here, and you know, sometimes it's a lot of clothes, sometimes it's not so much clothes, but I put it out, and you know, on an average Saturday there'll be at least 100 people here coming to look through, see what they can glean out of the clothing and other items that I bring out.
So you're what, Saturday and?
Saturdays and Wednesdays. Saturdays at 10 o'clock in the morning, a.m., and Wednesdays at 1 p.m.
Wow. And so you're getting enough donations to be able to kind of bring enough for everybody?
Yeah, so I've got about 7 drop-off locations right now where people from the area can drop off at these drop-off locations, and then I go around once a week to these drop-off locations, and I pick up whatever people have dropped off. And you know, sometimes, like I say, especially in the wintertime, people are more concerned about the homeless in the wintertime. Right. And so in the wintertime, I get probably about twice as much as I do in the summertime. Yeah, doing what I can with what I've got, you know, and so it's you know, it's kind of morphing into a little bit different situation, but still doing the same thing basically. You know, supporting, you know, supplying needs, basic needs of people that otherwise wouldn't have a lot of the basic necessities. So, you know, and then again, you look at society, you know, the broader society, and you look at you know, we're on these unsustainable systems, you know, and personally, I see the broader society as not being in the right place, more so than even the homeless. Tiny homes would be ideal, something small where we could save resources for future generations. But here we're just burning up, you know, these unsustainable, limited resources, you know, for our own selfish, immediate gratifications. And meanwhile, you know, future generations would like to enjoy this stuff. And you know, the homeless, they're not using up these resources. You know, the homeless could live in a tiny home, you know, and minimize these resources, using up these resources. So, you know, as I see it, you know, I don't see the homeless as, you know, some people would like to say the homeless are the culprit. You know, they're out there, they're not contributing to society, they're not out there getting, you know, the job or whatever. And you know, again, I can't fault them too much because I see society on the wrong track. They're on the wrong road, too far down the wrong road, and they're too far to turn back. You know, we should never have gone on these unsustainable resources. Personally, I think it's going to be the demise of our society because there's going to be conflicts over these limited resources sooner or later. So yeah, so when I look out at the picture, some people, you know, the perspective is that the homeless are you know, something less, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you know. But again, you know, minimizing the using up the resources, I think is big. You know, we really need to go back to natural resources, sustainable resources, and you know, the homeless are closer to that than the average person in average society.
Would we look at the homeless as maybe being symptoms as opposed to the actual diseases?
No, exactly. You know, if you, we didn't have this many homeless, you know, per capita, you know, back in the 50s, because housing was less expensive and jobs were easier to come by. And so you didn't have that many homeless. And so what I see, you know, the reason that we have a greater amount of homeless today is because of those problems. And then when they raised the minimum wage, they jacked up the price of housing, you know, so, you know, it's hard to keep up. So it's a tough one, it really is. But, you know, a start to this would be smaller homes on smaller pieces of property, $300 a month rent, $400 a month rent. You know, some type of a small vehicle. Somebody could donate a small vehicle. So those are big ways that people, can be helped. And again, there's roadblocks in the local societies, the local towns. Not in my backyard. That'll bring down my property values. If you put a tiny home, anywhere near me, it might bring down my property value. So people are all consumed about keeping their status, their status quo. So it's until we can change that, the mindset of the people, it's going to be difficult to be able to create these smaller homes on smaller pieces of property. Yeah, and we had people that were in Tent City that have come out. There was a I don't know if you remember Brian. Brian was in Tent City, chronic alcoholic, and so he was about as bad as you get as far as being an alcoholic. The ambulance would have to come down to Tent City to take him out. God bless you, brother. So yeah, he was as bad as they get as far as an alcoholic goes. And so what happened is he went into a program, and it clicked. He had a son, and he really wanted to be reconnected with his son. He took the initiative. He got over his addiction, got it under control, and now he's got a regular full-time job, and he's one of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet, and he's supporting himself, doing very well. And there's quite a few people, Dawn, yeah, and there's quite a few people that were in Tent City that have gotten, their selves together and their lives together, and they're back on track, supporting themselves on a regular basis. So, it's some people say, it's a lost cause, for a lot of people. But I never say never. Some of the people that you would think would never be able to, come out of this situation have. I've seen them, and so never give up. Never say never. Show them dignity. You do the best you can. You keep them alive through the wintertime. There was some guys sleeping over here at this church on their porch last winter. There was about 5 guys sleeping on the porch. And it was snowing that day. It was a snowstorm, and so I was riding around Lakewood looking for who might be outside. And I came up on these guys, and it's probably about 11 o'clock at night, and they are covered with snow. They're under their blankets, and they are just covered with snow. And I said, some of these guys are in their 60s, and I said, some of these guys just might not wake up tomorrow morning, if they're left out on this situation. So, that's when you say, I got a little bit of money, I've got to put some of these guys up in a hotel. So, put them up for a few nights in a hotel until the storm passes. But, that's if, there wasn't somebody around looking for these guys. I know for a fact one guy died early on in the winter. The police found him somewhere, sleeping outside, and he froze to death. So again, we do our best to try to find who we can, and give them let them see another day to have another chance.
What do you need most right now?
Well, let's see. I still do clothing. If people want to drop off clothing to the drop-off locations, they go to the Facebook page, find out where they are, drop them off. Clothing is big. Water is big during the summertime. During the wintertime, of course, it's propane for the propane heaters, keep them warm. Sleeping bags, I'm low on sleeping bags right now. Blankets, I'm low on. Camping gear, different types of tarps and things like that. They're all items that I need.
Are some of them still doing like the plywood, tarp kind of construction?
Well, yeah,
a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, the more solid, permanent-looking type structures, shanties, those type of things. The townships,
They come right on, right?
Yeah, they seem as too permanent. Of course, at Lakewood, we've got a lot of segregated housing in Lakewood, government-supported segregated housing in Lakewood, and so a lot of the African American community have been displaced. The percentage of African Americans in Lakewood has been cut in half in the last 10 years. And so, and that's government funded, gentrification and discrimination.